Will you please sing Hello, hello. Good afternoon, dear colleagues.
Hello, hello.
How are you, Andrit? Congratulations one more time for excellent news. I'm very glad to hear that there is a progress. Excellent.
Thank you. Thank you.
Perfect, perfect. Just keep up with the great achievements. Excellent. Miss Masuma, how are you?
Thank you for asking. Doing great. How about yourself?
Excellent, excellent. Ready for the workshop and doing many other things in the background. You will know soon. for many
I
of them.
know that. Yeah.
How about my lecture? You're gonna talk about my lecture in the next research meeting next week?
Research committee. We will have
Research
it.
committee.
Yes, we will have it on. Just give me a second. Wednesday next week. The
Yeah.
only issue at the moment, Dr. Andre, is the timing, but we will discuss it in the committee and definitely we will find the best solution. The only thing
Okay.
at the moment are the time slots for the meetings because everything is fully booked. There are some other things we will have one workshop soon related to some game-based learning and something. So it is hard to find the time.
Okay.
But we will see. We will see. Definitely, we
Yeah,
will
because I
discuss it.
put considerable work in it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, definitely. Everything we work on and we prepare definitely will be used at some point. So there will be a chance. Hi.
Okay. Okay.
We have fans. Hello, hello. Okay, let me check with all of you whether you can see my presentation in full screen now. Is it displaying okay correctly? Can you see it?
Yes,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
can
fine.
see it.
Okay, perfect, perfect, perfect. So we are set. Okay, let's wait for the others to join us and we can start.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Dr. Bashir. Welcome.
Hi, thank you.
How are you? All good.
Fine, thank you.
First day, I believe, second day actually of the semester. So many things to discuss.
Very busy.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine that.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Dr. Vladimir.
Hello, Dr. Walid. How are you?
Good and you, my friend. Good to see you.
Likewise, likewise. Okay, we will wait for another minute or two. Yeah, we have 2 more minutes and then we can get started with this workshop training.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, good afternoon. Welcome. Okay, one more minute and definitely we are starting.
Hello.
Hello, hello, Dr. Omar, welcome. Thank you, Dr. Omar, likewise. Okay, my dear colleagues, we are ready. So definitely I assume the others will join us hopefully soon. I see that all of us are actually from the College of Business. As far as I know, this invitation was sent to the whole AU community, but it seems like our colleagues, maybe they have enough competencies in this area. They're not interested in building them anymore. But definitely we will have this session recorded as all others before, and there will be an email simply to invite and to remind everybody to access the archive later and to watch the recording and to use, of course, those things which can be beneficial from the perspective of grant writing. So the idea with this training is actually very simple. First of all, the timing for this training. Let us discuss this part. As you all know, and this is where I would like to remind all of us one more time, please. At the moment, we have two open calls. We have a KFAS call for research grants, and later during this training, I will definitely open the call itself and point you to some important information over there. But for the moment, we have a KFAS call, which is due by March the 31st. So definitely there is more than enough time for us as a College of Business and for all other colleagues, of course, at the AU, to work on preparing some research proposals and submitting those proposals to KFAS. The second thing, at the moment, we also have a call for our internal seed grants. We have all received that invitation from, and a call actually from Dr. Khalil. And the thing is that the deadline for this call is February the 28th. Dr. Khalil told me, and I will use this opportunity one more time. In one of the previous meetings in the past several days, I was emphasizing this already, but I would like to emphasize it one more time. Regarding the topics, besides those topics which were identified as a priority in terms of funding for internal seed grants, please feel free to suggest any other topic which is in your interest, which is again, very precisely actually aligned with the things that I plan to discuss here with you regarding grant writing. So as I said, the timing for this workshop was selected on purpose simply to make it before the deadline for those two calls. So for those who are interested to simply use the information that we are going to share here in this training and to apply it immediately in the process of preparing your own project applications. When it comes to this workshop, as I said a few moments ago, actually my idea is to share some experience I gained in the past 3 years when I was very intensively and very active actually in terms of preparing project applications. I will show you a bit later some statistics in this regards. And from that perspective, definitely I gained some experience and some knowledge that I would like to share with all colleagues attending this training and those who will be watching this recording later. But on the other side, it would be very important for us to discuss. So I would really like to have you on board, and I would like to have you participating actually here, not only attending just to attend, because if this is the case and if this is your motive, please feel free to leave the workshop whenever you want, because what would be the point of it? So from that perspective, also before we proceed, I would like to ask you one more thing. I'm sure that you are familiar with the situation when you teach your students something and they are all behind their cameras and you are wondering whether they are drinking coffee or walking, I don't know, around the mall. So from this perspective, please try to, if possible, open your cameras. I would really like to see your faces and to know that I have somebody on the other side. And as I said, I'm planned to share my experience I gained in some previous period, and also would like to hear your contribution wherever and whenever you feel is appropriate, because I'm definitely not the ultimate authority in this area, but I know certain things that I would like to share. Thank you. I see that you are opening your cameras, and thank you so much. When it comes to grant writing, when I was creating this workshop and training, I was actually wondering what would be the point of it. If I only discuss information I find relevant, of course, this is very important. And if I only discuss the part with preparing the application itself, this is the core thing of this training, and this is also very important. But I think that we should discuss, first of all, some other aspects of grant writing, and primarily the part with motivation. So I will do it briefly at this point. Later on, I would like to hear your opinion in regards to grant writing and your motives to participate in it. And before I proceed, I would like to add one more thing. Please don't be surprised if I call your name at some point during the workshop. Simply, I would like to hear a feedback from you for some things that I would like for us to discuss. So as I said, when I was planning this workshop, I have identified actually 3 keywords around which I have planned the workshop itself. The first one is motivation, as I said. The second one, planning. If you want to have a good project application, you need to devote some time to planning. And then later on, we will discuss this part in details, not only today, but in the following 2 weeks, because I forgot to mention at the beginning, definitely we will have 3 sessions when it comes to this training, the first one today and the following 2 in the following 2 Mondays. So definitely there will be enough time to cover all the aspects that I mentioned at the moment. So one more time, motivation, planning, and I would call the final part the recipe for the cake. We want to make this cake delicious, and we want those people to whom we are actually preparing our grant application, this cake, to be delighted by it, to want to read it, to be interested in reading it whole, actually, not only scanning a pieces of information and finding the ways to reject us. So we need to follow some rules which are very precisely defined in the area of preparing grant writing. And this is actually the technical part. And this is something that we are going to deal with definitely at some point. We will start today for certain and continue in the following Monday. But the core idea for now is to simply discuss the part with motivation, as I said earlier, because it is very important for all of us. We are all researchers. And I noticed, I work with a lot of people here in Kuwait, in Serbia, in other countries as well. I noticed very often that when you try to initiate some research, you have a lot of people interested in joining the teams, in starting the research and everything else. But later on, when the time comes, simply people very often, not everybody, of course, but very often tend to lose interest, tend to do nothing actually, and to have some benefit out of it. So from this perspective, definitely, in my opinion, one of the most important things is to try to motivate the people to actually work and participate in preparing project proposals, because they need to understand that this is beneficial for them in many ways. Let me give you a few examples. You want to write a paper with Vladimir. Then you want to write a paper with Professor Alper. You want to write a paper with Dr. Omar. You want to write a paper with Miss Marcel. You want to write a paper with Miss Rupali, etc. Then you will end up having 10 different topics that you are actually working on, and trying to write some papers on the basis of those topics and that research. The core thing here, in my opinion, is the lack of focus and the problem with the lack of focus. Because in these regards, you will end up researching everything and you won't be specialized in anything. And you won't be able to offer ideas when the time comes. So when it comes to grant writing, this is something I will address later, of course, again. But the core thing is, you have two approaches in terms of preparing project applications or preparing for the project applications. The first approach is to have your idea ready and then to look for the call that you're going to answer to. This is the first approach. This is excellent approach, in my opinion. The second approach that we are currently using here at AU is to have a funding body, which is called KFAS or AU, and to submit some ideas that you will develop in some period of time. And the question is whether do you have enough time to develop it properly, to bring it to the necessary level to make it a successful application. So from that perspective, today, I'm going to show you some strategies that I personally use. As I said at the beginning, please, this is not a matter of the best solution in the area. This is a matter of my experience that I would like to share, and I would like to hear your feedback on this one and your experiences, because as I said at the beginning, I want to share the things I know, but truly, I want to learn from you. I also want to hear experiences of the others, because this is actually a brainstorming regarding grant writing. I'm only a moderator moderating the session related to grant writing. So from the perspective of generating ideas and from the perspective of focusing your research, my opinion is to try to stick with a limited number of ideas for which you will always be able to provide an extension. Later on, I will show you what do I mean by this. Also, when it comes to grant writing, our final goal actually for everybody, for each researcher in the world, is to have some research output, to have conference papers, to have papers in journals, etc. By having a grant that you have received from some institution, even if it is an internal seed, you definitely have much higher and better chances to have research output based on the things that you are interested in. Not to work with Vladimir or something which is not in your interest, only to work with him or with somebody else, only to have a research output. This isn't a good way to build your research portfolio and profile in the future, again, in my opinion. So regarding motivation, later on we will discuss again. I would like to hear your opinion at that point. For now, simply I wanted to emphasize that it is very important for all of us to be able to motivate ourselves to actually prepare the grant. And you need to be dedicated here. Don't, in my opinion, again, don't prepare the grant application only to prepare it. Because if you're not dedicated, if you're not motivated, the guys that are reading your application will notice that. They will see some faults in your application if you fail to do it properly. Not only from the perspective of the technical things that you will put over there. There are things very important. Professor Alper mentioned that in the first training we had. There is a surprising factor. Try to do something different in your grant application. Follow general rules, of course, but try to provide something different. Put different colors in your project applications. Make it look appealing from the perspective of the way you formatted it, to get the guy reading on the other side really interested in your application, to notice that application. Because very important thing, and we will discuss it again very soon, very important thing here, for some calls for proposals, the acceptance rate could be around 5%, meaning that out of 100 applications they receive, they will fund 5. Meaning that you really need to stand out with the quality of your idea, with the quality of your proposal, and those things that you will do as a surprise factor in your grant application to get them interested into your application, to read it carefully, and hopefully to rank it in a proper manner which is satisfying for you and your colleagues. So from that perspective, also important thing. There is one thing, I was walking the other day and simply thinking about writing grant proposals and some benefits for the students of ours. And I came to an excellent idea which actually resolves some issues I earlier had in my courses. For example, I was teaching digital marketing course. In digital marketing course, my students should use content management system to build their website, to identify value propositions, to conduct SEO and some other stuff, and simply to build a true marketing campaign for the business. Why don't I, as a teacher, and this is something I can offer, I believe this Dr. Doha is now instructor for this course. Why don't we give our students, for the project that we won for KFAS, to build a website and to use the knowledge they gained in a course to promote the results? And we will have at least two things which are beneficial for us. Our students will have the benefit to work on a real project. We will disseminate, we will spread the word around our work, our results, and everything else. So from that perspective, again, applying for project, besides bringing you the opportunity to publish, besides bringing you the opportunity to raise awareness in your community around the things that you're working on, brings you the opportunity to involve your students, not only in terms of creating websites and other things, in terms of collecting the data as well. You can have students, and definitely this is something that KFAS likes to see in the applications, students involved. So from these perspectives, these are some ideas and some motives for the people and for somebody to think even about preparing a project application. And of course, there are many more, but as I said, we will discuss them later on. When it comes to the planning, of course, as I said, again, we are going to discuss in more details in a few minutes. And finally, the part with the recipe, I'm going to show you the recipe for KFAS. Of course, you should be aware of the fact that this is grant writing in general. We will focus on KFAS requirements for certain here. My idea, to be honest with you, next year, hopefully, if everything goes well with this round of trainings, we will have a feedback from our colleagues attending and watching the recordings. And if everything goes well, on the basis of that feedback, we will plan some other trainings. We will include some other colleagues, etc. And the point is that I plan to have as a grant writing 2.0, have it next year dedicated to some external funding bodies more. Now I will be focused on KFAS, but definitely I will also mention some things which are important from the perspective of the others. So what are the objectives? What are the things that we actually want to achieve here with this training and this workshop? From my perspective, at least, when we finish everything in the following 3 weeks, please correct me if I did something wrong, because I would like to improve it for the next year. But these are the things that I expect us to have as an output and as an objective for us, actually, and later on as an output. To understand the underlying factors and requirements of the successful grant application. When I say to understand the underlying factors, I mean motivation, to understand our internal factors, what drives us, what is a motivational factor for me as Vladimir to work on a project application. On the other side, what are the requirements? What are the things I need to pay attention on when it comes to preparing project application? And definitely there are many things. If you fail to do some of them properly in the initial phase of your planning, your application will get rejected. You know, when you submit a paper to a journal, editor is the one who is checking your paper against aims and scope of the journal to see whether your research and your paper fits the aims and the scope. And if you fail to fit it and to show them the value for the journal and for their readers and for the community, research community, you will get rejected. The same thing happens here. If you fail to follow some rules, if you fail, for example, to actually fit under the thematic area in the call, that's it. The end of story for you. I had this situation with KFAS last year. Dr. Fade and myself and other colleagues were working on an application. We spent 1 month of our work, not constant work, but work during a period of 1 month. And we have submitted the application to KFAS. And they told us, sorry guys, this is out of scope. That's it. End of story. But this is something that I would like to emphasize here as a crucial thing from my perspective and on the basis of my experiences. Please, my dear colleagues, the things that I'm addressing here, and I will continue addressing in the following weeks, this is not a rocket science. I will show you the way, again, my way, to easily start working on preparing your own project applications and to do it systematically, step by step, from easier to more complex. But the thing is, I wanted to say something else, but I lost my idea. The core point here, as I said, is to understand those underlying factors. For now, I will definitely remember during the way. And in these regards, we are going to discuss this part in the introductory part of our workshop. I believe this is going to be the topic for today. After we finish with this part, the second objective for us, what is the most rational thing to say here? If you spend with me 4.5 hours in these 3 weeks, and you end up learning nothing, then we both wasted our time. We all actually, not both, wasted our time. So my idea is to show you principles. I cannot tell you, okay, write this sentence like this. I will show you the principles and the things that you need to follow to prepare your application properly. And it is very important. This is the thing I wanted to say earlier. Don't be afraid of the failure. Please, never. I know that especially young researchers and young colleagues who are not that experienced in research, they are afraid. They will send the paper and the editor will reject. And how the other peoples will react when they hear that you got rejected with your paper. This is a normal thing in research. This is absolutely normal thing. But please, important thing, when you receive a review, whether it is for your paper or for the grant, read it. This is very important. Read your review. You will be mad, probably. I know myself, when I receive it, I am mad first day. When I see that somebody rejected me for this, and this. But again, tomorrow, when I settle, I read again. And then I see these people are right. This is something I really omitted here. This is something I can improve. This is something I can do differently. And from those experiences, try to build your 2.0 version of your application, of your paper, whatever is the point. But please, the thing that you should not do for any cause and in any case, to use the same. You have received the rejection and then you use the same version of your paper or our project application without any modifications. Okay, you can do it for desk rejection, maybe, if they don't provide you with any feedback. But if they give you a feedback, try to improve those things which are not good, and then work on submitting your proposal or paper elsewhere. Because I'm 1,000,000% convinced, and this is again my experience, whenever you work on something, and when you generate something, whether it is a paper or application, definitely at some point, you will find a journal for it and you will find a call for it. But very important precondition here is for you to do it in iterations and to follow those reviews and comments that you are receiving, and of course on the basis of them to do the updates in your work. So when it comes to the knowledge, as I said, the second learning objective, using the knowledge to prepare the KFAS application, this is something I believe we must be able to do at the end of this process. And finally, to critically evaluate other grant applications. What is the core idea here, my dear colleagues? Last year, we have received some internal seed grants and applications here in the Scientific Research Center. We need people, we need reviewers who will be able and capable to do the review. I cannot send to Dr. Omar something which is related to digital marketing. This is not his area. Even though he understands, of course, the things that should be the elements of the project proposal, but this is not his area. So from that perspective, we need to have as much people as possible for now internally to do the review. When I say for now, what do I mean by that? The nice thing about writing grant proposals is the situation when you eventually reach to the point when funding bodies are actually reaching for you as institution or individual and saying, we have a call for you. This is something I see here with my colleagues in institute in Serbia. This is something I would like us to eventually come to that point. To have, for example, I don't know, United Nations for some of their programs to reach for us and to say, we have something in the Middle East, we would like you to submit your proposal and to work on this. Because this is how you increase your chances to receive that grant, first of all. And secondly, as I said earlier, simply I would like to focus now. The point is to have people, our faculty members, working as reviewers for those external bodies, for KFAS tomorrow, or even broader for some bodies in Europe or any other part of the world. And this is the way to do it. You need to be able to prepare your own applications properly, to hope that at some point somebody will call you and say, okay, Vladimir, would you like to evaluate and to participate and to evaluate this proposal? So this is why I put this learning objective also as important one for us. Because if we understand the underlying factors of preparing the project application on one side, and if we know the road we need to take to prepare it on the other side, and the elements which are mandatory over there on the other side, then it makes complete sense that after a certain period of time, after a certain number of applications, all of us will be able to do evaluation properly for the others. For KFAS, as I said, let's start with our internal seed grants, for example, for the start. So these are the objectives. As I said, when we finish everything, I would really like to see and receive a feedback from you whether you feel that you can do it. Of course, it is always hard to start and to try, but as I said, the only way to learn these things, unfortunately, you can read as much books as you can, as you want, and you can listen to this recording for hundreds of times until you prepare your own application, your first application, and until you receive a feedback. Only then you will actually start learning those small tips and tricks which are applicable and important. And this is not only for the projects, this is for papers as well. So this is the reason why, and one more time, please don't be afraid to work on it, to submit it, to receive feedback. This is an excellent thing for you, but only read the feedback that you receive and build upon it. This is the core idea. The plan. When it comes to the things that I have planned for today and the following 2 weeks, of course, as I said at the beginning, and this is something I would like to emphasize, Dr. Khalil will join us in week 3 for the purpose of explaining us the core requirements of the KFAS call, because he has extremely valuable insider information in regards to KFAS and the requirements. This is the first thing. And the second thing, he also has an experience in terms of budgeting, for example. Budgeting, to be honest with you, is one of the things that I really don't like to do when I work on project applications. I usually have somebody working on it, because for some reason I don't find it inspiring and motivating for me. But this is another topic. When it comes to those topics that we are going to cover, they are divided, as you can see here, in 3 main areas. Background info, this is actually the motivation, the keyword motivation I said and I used earlier. And this is something I would like, especially those less experienced colleagues to remember. Those 3 keywords: motivation, planning, and the recipe, the technical part. So here we have the motivational part. We have, and also it is also covering the planning part, this background info as well. We have a project proposal part. As you can see here, I have used the structure which is prescribed by KFAS. Every funding body has its template. Those things, of course, are common for all of them. Many things are common, but for some of them, definitely there are differences. For example, from KFAS, you have here as mandatory parts of your application: introduction, the research objectives, methodology, importance of the research outcomes, anticipated research outcomes, and references. And this is the core of your application. Of course, there are supplementary materials. When the time comes, I will discuss them, such as dissemination plan, data management plan, risk management plan, etc. Those are supplementary materials, and we will definitely dedicate some time to them when the time comes. But I would definitely put them, as they are provided here, as a technical part of your application. This is the scientific part, project proposal. This is where the magic happens. This is where you need to convince somebody that the things that you are working are actually good for the community or for the targeted audience that you have specified in your application. Of course, all other things are very important. These technical things related to submitting it on using some submission system or providing these supplementary materials, CVs, etc., etc. Definitely, and this is the reason why we are going to cover them as well in the third part of this workshop. And to finish this brief introduction, my apologies, simply I am trying to tell you as much as I can, so this is the reason why there is different information, but I believe these things are important, and this is the reason why I'm focusing on them and emphasizing them. This part, in my opinion, represents the most important reason for us as a College of Business, as AU actually, not only College of Business, to have this training. As you can see here, this is something that I have extracted from annual report for the entire AU for the academic year 21-22. And it says here that last academic year, we won 11 internal seed grants. By the way, all internal seed grants submitted were actually approved. This is also very important. I will dedicate some time to this part when the time comes later. On the other side, we as AU, I don't know the exact numbers. To be honest, I didn't ask Dr. Khalil. I know that on the College of Business, if I counted well, we have well enough. We have 18 to 19 PhD holders. In the College of Engineering, the number is definitely higher, meaning that we have at least 50, but I think the number is higher, even higher than that. 50 people, PhD holders, and we only had 2 applications for KFAS, 1 applications for KFAS. On the other side, the fact, which is, in my opinion, unacceptable for the university, besides KFAS, as you can see here, there are no external applications, WON applications. There were applications. I know that Dr. Doha submitted an application last year to University of Sharjah, for example. But we didn't win yet any application. This is unacceptable. This is beneficial for us, not only from the perspective of having the application, external application for some financial reasons or what. This is important in terms of building networks, in terms of creating multinational teams, in terms of making our research international. So from this perspective, definitely we need to do something. We need to start working on it to be able, in my opinion, 2 years from now, if we start now, this is the main condition. If we start now, 2 years from now, College of Business independently can have up to 3 WON applications on a yearly basis. 1. So in these regards, there is a way we can do it. I will discuss it in more details in the following minutes. Okay, this is the intro. Any comments, anything that you would like to add before I proceed? Because when I started, I'm hard to be stopped. Okay, definitely. This was only motivational part. I like to do this with my students as well, to be honest, simply for the people to understand why they are doing these things. So from this regards and from that perspective, I hope that we all now have a better understanding. When it comes to the background information related to grant applications, I would like to start with my portfolio. And there is a very good reason why I'm doing this. Not only to say, okay, I had that and that, and I achieved this and this. I want to show you the things I did in the past around 3 years, 2.5 to 3 years, approximately. This is the time frame. Simply for you to see that it is manageable, of course, and to show you the way I did it, because I think that many of you can copy this actually approach and use it for your own purposes. And this is how we can have a final result much better when the time comes. So this is my portfolio, as I said, at this moment. Just give me a second, sorry. In the past 3 years, regarding my applications for different grants and different institutions. As you can see here, in orange, we have submitted grant applications. In green, we have one. In blue, under review, and in red, rejected. And as you can see, for KFAS, I have submitted, this is only one important note here. These are project applications in which I was a PI. I only counted this one because definitely I was a team member for some others, but I didn't want to include them. Simply, I wanted to show you from my personal perspective how I was working on these things and developing and simply trying to focus my research for some future period. So when it comes to the KFAS, as you can see here, we have 4 applications. 2 of them are won. 1 of them was rejected, as I said earlier, because it was out of scope. And 1 of them is under review. So hopefully we will hear some good news by the end, let's say middle of this year. Then there is one action which is called cost, and it exists in Europe. And it is related not only, the point of this type of grants is completely different from other types of research grants. Here, you have the opportunity to participate in a pool of, let's say, 30, 40 different countries and scientists from these different countries, and it provides you the opportunity to network, to organize joint conferences. You receive invitations for special editions of the journals, for postdoctoral positions, and many other things. It is a great thing to network, to build networks on different sides of the world. The focus is in Europe, definitely. Sometimes they give the opportunity to some other countries to join. And actually, as you can see here, there is one that I already participate in. This is the green one. And there is the blue one, which is under review. This is something I participated in. I think it was the end of last year, somewhere around November or December, in a pool of applicants and as a representative for Kuwait. So we will receive the results for this one, hopefully by the May this year. And if everything goes well, we will have this cost action, and I will be there representing AU and representing actually Kuwait in this regards. And this is going to give us the opportunity to network. In my opinion, it can bring us a lot of positive things in terms of organizing the conferences and many other things. When the time comes, I will definitely discuss it in more details. For now, simply for you to have an idea what is the core point here. Then, when it comes to European Union and the funds existing over there, I have submitted 2 applications, and definitely those are the two most complicated applications I was working on. Later on, I will show you those applications. One of them is under review, and we are hoping to receive very soon the results regarding that one. One of them, unfortunately, we passed the first round. It was positively assessed by the reviewers, but then in some funding bodies simply have the practice of having a program board, and then you simply have a meeting with them like this. And in a meeting, they are asking you to explain those downsides, mainly, that reviewers identified in your project proposal. So we reached this phase, but unfortunately, we were not accepted. So that one was rejected. Yeah. When it comes to GCC, only for me as a PI, we have one which is actually submitted. It should have been submitted by the end of January. It will be submitted in the following few days, and hopefully, if everything goes well, we will have some positive feedback over there. It is in Oman because we are establishing some collaboration with them. So this is the application that went over there. And internal seed grants, as you can see here, I have 3 and I won 3 of them. As I said at the beginning, actually, if you do it properly and if you fulfill some major requirements for internal seed grants, most probably you will receive an approval and you will be able to work on your internal seed grant. As you can see here, in total, I had, let me count it one more time, 4 KFAS, 2 cost, 2 AU, and 3 internal seed. This is in total 11 project applications in a period of 3 years, meaning that, let's say, on average, this would be around 3 applications per year. One of them would be internal seed, one of them is usually KFAS, and one of them is something external. This is approximately the plan. The key question here, if I have 11 project applications, what do you think? Is it rational to apply 11 times with 11 different topics, completely different from one from another? Absolutely no, of course. The point is to use a systematic approach I was mentioning earlier. The point is to focus, and the point is to develop your research in phases or stages. And this is the approach that I'm using. And as you can see here, this is the reason I have provided this table here, for you to see that actually on those 11 applications, I was applying using 4 different topics that I'm investigating. One of them, game-based learning, as you can see here, this is the application that went only to KFAS, so I will definitely exclude it, meaning that besides that topic, I have 9 applications on these 3 topics: digital entrepreneurial competencies, remote work opportunities, and the adoption of mobile banking apps. And the core idea here, and this is something I would like to share with you and to simply advise you to try to do something similar, or again, if you have some other ideas and something that you would like to share, please. The idea, very simple. Let me start with digital entrepreneurial competencies to explain you the context, how everything started. Few years ago, I was teaching digital entrepreneurship, digital marketing, all these things related to conducting business online, on internet. And I was always wondering, what is the actual outcome and how well prepared are my students, not only mine, but also the students that other colleagues throughout the world are teaching in this area for the actual labor market. Of course, we have grades as a way to measure their progress, and this is okay. But very often we are restricted with the curricula, with the textbooks that we are using and other stuff. So the question was simply to see and to try to identify the way to measure the level of digital entrepreneurial competencies at that point. So from that perspective, our initial idea started from conducting a self-assessment study for the students to be able to assess how they perceive their levels of digital entrepreneurial competencies. And this is where this internal seed grant was born. This is where we have submitted internal seed grant, which was dealing with this area. The idea was to conduct, of course, the literature review to see what is the current state of the art in the area, and then to see how we can bring and add some value to it. And on the basis of that, as I said, we have established this first internal seed grant. On the other side, when a call for KFAS was open, then we said, okay, let us do the next stage. Now we have a self-assessment. Let us include also so-called knowledge and ability. Let us do the questionnaire in which our students will actually show their knowledge and ability to do certain things related to digital entrepreneurship. Why is this important? Because in this way, we will be able to compare their assessment and their perception of the assessment and, of course, the actual assessment. And on the basis of the gap that we expect to have in these regards, we are going to build later on some tools to help them improve the level of their competencies. And this is how that KFAS grant was born. So the same thing happened with the remote work opportunities. Here, we were wondering, people with disabilities, they simply, and this is something that the actual data is showing, they are suffering from employment exclusion and poverty. Is there a chance for remote work opportunities existing on different platforms such as Freelancer, such as 99 Design or whatever, Upwork, etc.? Is there a chance for them to enroll that market and to simply improve their position? This was the question that we were wondering at the beginning. Again, in internal seed grant, we did a very simple thing. We were, of course, conducting literature review and assessing their perceptions, how they perceive what is the level of their competencies and their knowledge and skills to participate in the market. This was the internal seed grant. Again, for KFAS, we introduced another stage, another phase of our research, saying, okay, now we are going to introduce not only self-assessment, but this time we are going to introduce knowledge ability assessment as well. And on the basis of the gap, we are going to build a learning platform, and we will provide those people the opportunity, for the experts to actually give them upskilling and reskilling training in the area of digital marketing. And this is how we will improve their chances to land some opportunities in remote work market. So from that perspective, again, we had several phases. The second thing I mentioned earlier, the application we submitted to Oman. Actually, what was the core idea here? We have received the KFAS grant already in Kuwait for these things. The simple thing was to do the same thing, to apply the same methodology in Oman. And then on the basis of the data that we are going to collect over there in Kuwait, we can do some cross-country analysis when the time comes. So from this perspective, the idea here, start with simple things through internal seed grants. This is the conclusion. And then build your research. When you reach certain stage, consider the way to extend it to something else, to some other country or to some other area. And definitely when you try investigating and when you start investigating the opportunities, when you start reading the literature and the things that other authors already did, you will always find the option in every paper, every serious paper in the world, there is an option saying future research recommendations. And you can always be able to see and to read over there. This can give you some initial idea, not only for the idea, but also later for extending your idea into something else. The same thing happened with adoption of mobile banking apps, so I'm not going to repeat myself in this part. From the perspective of requirements of the funding bodies, which were financing these applications, I made this classification here simply to show you something and to tell you one story which is very important for those who are not familiar with the submitting applications. As you can see here, I marked all internal seed grants in green color. They are easy. The requirements to submit internal seed grants are easy. The budget for internal seed grants in case of AU is 1,500 KDs. That is the option for the large grants up to 5,000 KD. But in general, the budget for those applications are lower, meaning that the expectations are lower. And their name suggests for itself seed grants. The idea is to initiate somebody, to motivate somebody to start thinking about certain idea and to start working on a certain idea. And this is where, please, my dear colleagues, I would like to invite you all one more time to think whether you can do something like this for this call that we have currently open. You can start with the easy things. I have an impression that sometimes people think we will submit the internal seed grants and we are expected to publish immediately in Q1 or what. Please initiate your research. This is the core idea here. You will have some output. You will have conference paper. You can have a book chapter. You can have some things which are easier to publish. You can publish in uncategorized paper if you are not, if you don't have the data and the quality of the materials that you can submit to Q1. But eventually, if you think this way, you will start your research. You will work on it, and you will see. And you will be deeper in the topic. This is the core thing, to be deep in the topic, to understand it better than anybody else. And then you will see better what are the options for your research and where you can extend it in the future. And this is where, as I said earlier, when we have another call for KFAS calls next year, let's say, or when we have a call for some external funding bodies, then you already have the idea and you say, okay, one of the reasons why I almost always reply to those calls is because I have these ideas and I'm always thinking, what is the extension that I can offer here? Important thing, please, very important thing. If I receive 11 grants from 11 different institutions to finish them in a period of 2 years, this is impossible for 11 different topics. This is impossible. But the core thing is to have them divided into phases and to have an overlap between them. This is absolutely okay. And to have teams, people, this is also very important. Writing and later on conducting research under research grant. This is not a one-man show. This is a team's work. You need to have a team of people. Of course, this is a normal thing everywhere in the world. You will build a team, and then you will see that in your team there are free riders. This is happening all over the world. Okay, absolutely. This is absolutely okay from my perspective. You as a PI have the absolute freedom, and you can make a final decision in whether you will exclude the person or you will try to do something with this person until the project ends. But next time, you are not going to invite that person again. So in these regards, eventually you will start building your teams of people, and I am in a good way to have it, because in these regards, then you will have people dedicated to certain things. And when there is a call, you have idea, you have everything, you focus on, let's say, introduction objectives, you have statistician for the methodology for that quantitative part, for example, you have a person for budget, you have a person who is good in organizing things. And you will need that person when the time comes, when you start deploying your project later. You will definitely need the person who can organize everything. Of course, you are PI, but you need the help from other people as well. So from that perspective, simply remember this is a teamwork, and you definitely, through these things, and especially from internal seed grants, you can start working on your idea and have multiple benefits out of it, and building your own teams that you can later assemble and apply for some very serious funding bodies. So when it comes to internal seed, one more time, the budget is low, the requirements are low. The chances of getting internal seeds are high. A great thing for early career, for everybody, not only early career, for everybody. We are definitely the only issue, and the main constraint for everybody who's teaching is the lack of time. So through internal seed grants, you can slowly work on your research in a period of 1 year and bring it to the next level. Do something with it, and to simply see whether there is a potential. If you see at the end of the process, there's no potential for the extension, this is all okay. You will have some output in the meantime. Of course, after you bring it to a certain level, there is a medium level, I would say, medium level of requirements and hardness in terms of requirements of those funding bodies. And this is the reason why I put here KFAS and GCC that called originating from Oman. Actually, the budget is higher here. The requirements are higher in terms of documents that you are requested to submit. But of course, the acceptance rate as a consequence of those things is also lower. Meaning, I don't know the exact number, to be honest with you. My estimation is that for KFAS grant, the acceptance rate should be around 20 to 30%. This is only an estimation. I really don't know the exact data. But definitely it is easier to win a project with KFAS than to win the project with European Union and Horizon, for example. So definitely there is a huge difference over there, not only in terms of requirements, but also in terms of acceptance. But the thing is, as the budget becomes higher, the requirements are higher and the acceptance rate is lower. This is somehow normal thing. And of course, those hard things, as I said earlier, European Union, this is something that I simply have a focus on, so I cannot say about some other regions in the world, but from my perspective, this is, let's say, this is how I see a hard way to apply in terms of requirements and the budget and everything else, but I will show you later, you will be able to see it yourself. So this is one approach I would definitely like to emphasize here. And one more time to ask you all, please think about initiating your own research in a period of 1 year. Don't set too high the expectations in terms of output. Nobody's asking you that. But work on your research. Try to develop it. Try to have it ready when the time comes. Next year we have the call, you have your research. You brought it to the next level, which is acceptable for KFAS or for some other funding body. Of course, my dear colleagues, one more thing I would like to share here with you. You can directly apply for medium level funding bodies or even for hard ones directly, starting everything from a scratch. But here you need to be aware of one very important thing. Usually those calls are open 3 to the maximum 6 months. And usually, at least my experience is about around 3 months. Whether you and your team have the time primarily to dedicate it to investigate the whole topic from the scratch, to develop everything in terms of the requirements. And this is, I will show you later, the full application for Horizon is 350 pages long. Of course, there are a lot of supplementary materials over there. 70 pages is the application itself. Can you deliver high quality 70 pages of materials in a period of 3 months? I'm not sure, to be honest with you. I personally wouldn't step into something like that. But of course, this is also the option for you. In my opinion, the easier way is to start with internal, to develop it, and gradually bring it to some other funding options and funding authorities. Motivation. This is the part that we already discussed earlier. Of course, there are many things. I would like to hear you finally after this long discussion from my side. We almost finished the whole first period. What would be the motivation? I would like to hear those colleagues who are actually less experienced in applying for the project grants and applications in the past. Ms. Rupali, please. I see your hand raised.
Thank you, Dr. Vladimir, for this very fruitful session. I just want to make sure everybody can hear me.
Yes, everything is okay, no worries.
Thank you. I have to mention this, Dr. Vladimir, your profile is very impressive. My target is to achieve a quarter of it in submitting the grants and these.
Of course. If you start working on it, eventually you will. This is not a rocket science, as I said.
I will. I do have few questions. My first question is a very simple question, how do we identify the grants? Like we have KFAS sitting here in AU, we know about KFAS, we also know about internal seed grants, but sometimes the problem I face that the topic, in which I am interested, sometimes it doesn't fit 100% in, the branch which is open for the applications to be submitted. So how do myself as a young researcher, I can identify the grants bodies outside? That's my first question.
Yes. Can I answer immediately your first question, and then we will proceed to the next one? This is something, Ms. Rupali, that I will definitely discuss in more details. But for now, depending on the institution, in some institutions, for example, I know for a fact here with some colleagues in Serbia, there is something called project office. And there you have people who are very experienced in winning the projects in the past. And those people simply constantly monitor the open calls. And when you come to them and say, okay, this is the idea that I have, can you please recommend me the call that fits for that idea? And this is actually the case for the application I mentioned earlier. I did for, this was European Social Fund. I did it last year with my colleagues. And we had the idea related to remote work opportunities. And we did exactly the same thing. We went to them and said, okay, this is the idea, can you offer us the call? And they identified the call which was actually written for that idea in every possible sense of speaking. I will show you later when we open the file. So we will discuss it in more details, Ms. Rupali. The only way is to read carefully the call and to discuss it with your colleagues who are more experienced. Unfortunately, there is no ultimate authority to which you can go and say, okay, I have an idea, please, is this the match? You need to read it yourself carefully. You need to discuss it with the people who are more experienced than you. And eventually, at some point, who knows, maybe we will have a project office dealing with these things. For now, feel free to contact me or Dr. Khalil. I will definitely be more than happy to help you. If you come to me and say, okay, I have an idea, this is the plan that I want to do in terms of my research, can you help me in identifying the call for it? But you definitely need to show me a proof that you really have the idea which is developed enough to be able to be submitted as the application at some future point. But as I said, this is something we will discuss in more details later. Something else,
Thank
Mr.
you so much, Dr. Yes,
okay.
One more question. It's a very simple question. I know it's, I'm not sure if it's relevant here, but I would like to ask anyways.
Of course.
Now, sometimes, we receive these emails that please contribute in a case study or please contribute in a book chapter, random emails that come to our AU email. So, and sometimes I want to do that because, you know, the topic interests me, but I'm not sure if how authentic or, you know, how valuable that is. So who can help us in that if I identify something? So, because
The
sometimes I
first
don't
thing,
want
Mr. Pali,
to.
yes, of course. The first thing you need to pay attention on is the publisher. If it is, I don't know, Springer Nature, it makes sense to do something like that. But please be aware of the fact that for those serious publishers, you are undergoing a very serious review process, as for the paper almost in the journal. So not almost, actually, the same as in the journal. So the point is, you need to have a high quality paper for this purpose. And then the question is whether, if you have a high quality paper, whether this is a good option for you to submit it over there. Maybe you can try with some journal which is indexed somewhere. So again, this is something different, but if you need additional information, please feel free to contact me. We can discuss it privately, simply to focus on the things that we are discussing at the moment. Okay?
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Vladimir. Appreciate it.
My pleasure, Mr. Pali. When it comes to motivation, to simply cut those things, they are easy and understandable, but we need to emphasize them. The first motive for every researcher is to receive a funding for your research. In terms of equipment, software, publication, you need to pay publication fees tomorrow when your paper got accepted, or you need to visit a conference to present the results of your research. When you have a grant, definitely one of the items in your budget will be dedicated to publication costs, to trips, to visiting conferences, to developing certain tools. For example, for that KFAS grant, and this is something we did, we have a tool that we have developed under this project, and the tool is already hosted. We will work on promoting it in a very, very recent period of time, but the idea is that we use the funds available over there to develop the tool. And from that perspective, we will use the tool to collect the data, and then, of course, to have materials to publish, etc. Creation of the research teams. I was already discussing this part earlier, so there is no need for us to discuss it anymore here. Building research portfolio. Of course, when you're engaged in a research, the logical thing for you would be to publish eventually, and to build your research portfolio, not only from the perspective of publications, but also from the perspective of being a team member or PI of the project proposals. Because this is very important. You will see in a few minutes when I open some calls. In some calls, especially those who are complex, there is an eligibility criteria, not only for the institution, but the institution, of course, should have certain criteria fulfilled. Also, besides eligibility for the institution, there is the eligibility criteria for PI. And for example, you cannot be a PI unless you were earlier a PI for some research project, for example. So from these regards, it is important to have projects. It is important to be a PI in those projects, simply to build your profile in time. Professor Alper said an excellent thing during his training. This is our currency. This is the profile that we are building, the research output that we are generating. This is our currency. But again, in this matter, we are not only building our personal currency and profile. We are building a profile for our institution as well. As I said earlier, eventually your institution will start receiving calls from the others interested in their research. For example, here at the College of Business, we are initiating the collaboration with the Varba Bank. At the moment, we are the ones who are initiating and calling them for a meeting to discuss the options and everything else. But imagine the situation that in 5 years from now, for example, we did 2 or 3 these projects, we already have a reference list. People will start recognizing us. So from this perspective, institutions will start contacting us on their own. This is the idea. This is the objective for some future period. Of course, financial incentives. This is an important thing to emphasize here. Again, depending on the budget. For example, for KFAS call, you cannot count to have a salary for your work on the project. You can cover different categories of costs, but no salaries. When the time comes, Dr. Khalil will discuss this part in more details. Simply, he's an expert for this. But for example, in that European Union funds that you're applying for, you can always have a salary, monthly salary, on the basis of your engagement actually in a project. So from this perspective, you can also expect again, depending on the funding body, depending on the complexity of the project, to receive some financial incentives. You can learn, you can do many different things and many benefits originating from participating in writing a project proposal. And again, and this is the reason why I put this part here, the fear of the failure. Please don't be afraid to fail. Be afraid of doing nothing. If you fail, use the feedback that you have received to learn out of it and to prepare something which will be better. And if you gradually improve the things that you are working on, definitely you will end up with something which is going to be of a high quality. And then you will be able to submit your proposal to some funding bodies, to some very complex, actually, schemes in terms of funding. Calls for proposals. Finally, we can discuss something which is, let's say, a technical part. On purpose, I dedicated this time for the motivational speak and underlying and explaining these underlying factors, because I really and strongly believe it is very important. Because if you force me to do something, if I don't understand the benefits for me to do it for myself primarily, not for the institution that I'm working on, for myself, then I will generate something only to generate it. As I said at the beginning, if you are doing something only to do it, don't do it. Don't waste your time and energy of somebody who is going to read something that you will generate in this manner. And as I said, the thing that makes the difference is the passion, dedication, motivation. This is the important thing in every aspect of our work. And I'm at the moment addressing the part with the project proposals. When it comes to the proposals, this is the thing that actually Ms. Rupali asked earlier. Extremely important part. As I said earlier, unless you do it carefully, you will end up preparing a project application which will get rejected immediately, almost immediately. And you will end up losing 1 month or 3 months or 6 months of your work and work of your team for nothing. Of course, you can use that application later for some other calls, but avoid the situation, because it is really time consuming in terms of preparing everything. In terms of preparing everything for the application, especially for those complex ones. For internal seed grants, these are easy things. For KFAS, medium, but for the hard things, definitely takes a lot of time and energy to do these things. So you need to be definitely motivated and sure that you can contribute. When it comes to the reading the call, pay attention, please. Thematic areas. Thematic areas. Unfortunately, on the basis of my experiences with KFAS, I would say that somebody is conducting this primary evaluation when we submit the application. And I would say that not only for the KFAS, this is probably the thing for everybody, but I would say that they are paying attention on the title and the abstract. Meaning that when you read the call for KFAS, for example, try to incorporate keywords such as, depending on the area that you are selecting, such as digital transformation, for example, for us from the College of Business, try to incorporate them into your title, into your abstract, simply for the person who is conducting this first initial evaluation to make sure that you are on the right track. On the basis of the things and the experience I had so far, I told you one of the applications was rejected because it was out of scope. I was analyzing the reasons later, and I saw that actually we didn't emphasize this part strong enough in the title and later in the abstract. Maybe that could be one of the reasons. Maybe. I'm not 100% sure, of course. Eligibility, please. This is extremely important part of every project application. There were situations during last year when I definitely received, and I was working on some applications with my colleagues from Serbia and other countries. And I was trying and looking for the ways to include our colleagues from Kuwait, from College of Business, but unfortunately, simply Kuwait in most cases, for some European funds, was not an eligible country. So in these regards, definitely, if you're trying to apply, let's say us from College of Business, you would like to apply for Horizon. And if in eligibility criteria it says you're not eligible, you can work on everything, you can submit everything, and they will tell you, sorry, why didn't you read the instructions saying that you're not eligible. So from that perspective, please make sure that you read everything very, 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 very carefully. You need to make sure this is the answer, the exact answer to Mr. Pauli's question earlier. Who can help you here? Nobody but yourself to read it. Of course, if you are uncertain and if you want to consult, find some colleagues who have more experience than you. And as I said, in the case of AU, Scientific Research Center, please feel free to contact Dr. Khalil or myself. I will do my best to read the call, to listen to your idea, and to see your draft that you're going to give me, and I will help you from my side as much as I can, of course, in this regards. Nobody can guarantee you that you will fit under thematic area for 100%, but let's do it in the best possible manner from our side to fit. When it comes to eligibility, as I said, make sure that you are eligible to apply. Very important from the perspective of KFAS as well, from the perspective of other funding bodies. There are always institutional eligibility criteria and personal. So make sure that you fulfill everything. In case of personal eligibility criteria, as I said earlier, one of the criteria can be that you were a PI of the international project in the past 3 years, for example. And if you don't have this criteria, but you have a colleague who does, what will be the solution? Your colleague will be formally a PI. This is the way you can resolve this issue, and you can still continue applying if you're interested in applying. So there is a solution for this part. For the institutional part, unfortunately, there is no solution if you're not eligible. Assessment criteria. This is extremely, extremely, extremely important. For every call, I will show you now the calls. Now I'm just stressing some important things here. Assessment criteria for every call. There are things that the reviewers will later assess when it comes to your proposal. I will show you next time. I have an example of the review form for European projects. And I will show you they have a set of questions for every segment of your application to answer them. Does the application fit thematic areas, for example? Yes, no. Does the application provide enough evidence about capacity building of the young researchers, for example? Yes, no. And on the basis of those things, you will receive, of course, some oral explanations, and you will receive definitely a final result. So it is very important to be familiar with the assessment criteria. Why? Because later, when you follow these assessment criteria, you will, and those things which are important from the perspective of that call, you will integrate them into your application and try to align the things which are important, such as strategic priorities, strategic documents, and other things. I will show you in a bit. Due dates, of course, it is very important to know what is the due date for your application. So make sure you are familiar with this, and of course, plan accordingly when the time comes. So I will now open here the call for KFAS call. This is the actual call that is still ongoing. So this is the link. This is the KFAS website. We have received this call from Dr. Khalil, of course, earlier. And in here, you can find all relevant information regarding this call. What are the due dates? What are the types of the grants that they are financing? And for example, I'm interested here in, this is basic and applied proposals. I'm going to click on it, and I will open this PDF document explaining in details the requirements regarding my application. What are the grant types? And I need to make sure that I fit under one of these. And what are the domains? And under domains, as you can see here, they have specified the areas they are interested in. Make sure, please, this is something that I will definitely underline next time we meet when we start working on the application. Make sure to align your application, especially the introductory part and the objectives, to the overall objectives of the call. This is how you show to the funder that you actually take care about these things, and that you will address these things when the time comes, and that you actually fit under their call. So these are different domains. Of course, we are not going to read them all. KL domain, this is the domain education. This is domain for us, for example, and digital transformation. So you need to read carefully these things to see requirements for proposal submission. And here you can see and read, of course, first of all, what are main requirements in terms of the length of the project, for example, in terms of the things that can be financed, that cannot be financed, what does the supplementary materials, etc., etc. And this is important, priority criteria for evaluation. Don't work on your application until you read these things, until you highlight the most important things which are relevant for your proposal. Only then start working on it, and then try to implement these things as much as possible into your application. We will show these things, of course, next time. General requirements for the applicants. These are the things I mentioned earlier. The applicant must be from institution in KFAS, etc. I am not going to read these, but as I said, these are the eligibility criteria that you must fulfill. So for KFAS call, it is, I would say, a fair. Second, yeah, it is a simple thing, definitely, when it comes to the not simple, but not so complex. Let me show you the complex call. This is for that European Social Fund I was applying, as I told you earlier. And this is the call. As you can see, the call has 30 pages. So there are many very important things here you need to address. And of course, as I said earlier, due dates, assessment criteria, eligibility criteria, and everything else. Let me show you something. The first thing I did when I was reading this are these things. As you can see here, I hope you can see it. They are highlighted. The things that they are finance. I need to highlight the things which are relevant for my idea, for my research, because later on in the project application, I'm going to incorporate all these things simply to let them know that I have addressed all of them. This is the core idea here. So as I said, many different things are explained. I'm not going to, of course, go with you in details. You will have the access to these files, so you will be able to read them. The expected impact, they have classified here the impact for every single aspect of the expected impact for this call, for example. Also, available budget. This is, I forgot to mention earlier, these are the budget for that proposal we sent is around $1 million. So as you can see here, the total budget is 10 million, and they plan to finance 15 to 20. So from this perspective, as I said, the acceptance rate is extremely low. So if you got accepted, perfect. If not, you will receive beneficial reviews, and on the basis of those things, you will be able to build your application even better in the future. Eligibility, as you can see here, and as I said earlier, legal entities in the countries which are eligible. Then, besides the eligibility for the institution, you can always see here these things related to eligibility for a single PI, sorry, and some many other things. So the core thing, as I said earlier, read it carefully and highlight those things which are relevant for your proposal. For example, they are here asking, this is very important, operational capacity. It says here, applicants must have the know-how, qualifications, and resources. So the point is that you need to show them that you and your team, on one side, on the other side, your institution, are capable of actually completing this project and all activities in it. This is extremely important thing. But as I said, let us start from the beginning and from the scratch. These are more complex things, so eventually we will reach them at some point. But to be able to reach them, we need to start from somewhere, and I would definitely suggest to start from internal seed grants. And the final slide for today, and this is where we are going to finish with this introductory motivational talk and the talk related to underlying factors. Next time we meet, we will discuss the technical part. We will discuss the way you should prepare the introduction, objectives, methodology, and other aspects of your proposal. The first thing before you start working on your application, from my experiences, is to ask yourself, what is the status or what is the phase actually of your research idea? In what phase are you now? If you're starting from a scratch, in my opinion, the answer in terms of applying for a grant is very obvious. Apply for an internal seed grant, and that's it. If you already are working on a research and you already have some results and some accomplishments and you would like to extend it, then it makes sense to think about KFAS or some other funding body. If you brought it to the very high level during time, then you definitely can apply for some more complex financing schemes. So in these regards, I would say this is important to ask yourself as a PI, a person who will be organizing and coordinating the activities of the team working on a project application. What competencies do you need in a team? This is something I already mentioned earlier. It is very important to know what is your idea, to know later, of course, you will start working on an application, and you will see, you will need, for example, a methodologist who will help you in terms of, I don't know, setting a research design. You will need a person who will be dedicated to, I don't know, we are focusing on something which is very specific as a topic. For example, I am focusing on digital entrepreneurship, let's say, and I need a person, a help for adults. So, and I'm trying to measure the level of their competencies in these regards. It makes sense for me to say, okay, maybe I need an andragogist, if I'm not wrong, this is the word in English, simply a person who is a specialist in adult education, who can give me some guidelines in terms of setting the assessment criteria for those adults in a proper manner, for example. So from that perspective, you need to know your idea and to try to develop a team of people who will be actually working on it in the process of preparing it, first of all, and later in the process of implementing your research when the time comes and when you hopefully get accepted. Make the plan, as I said earlier, you have a due date, you need to organize the activities of the team. I prefer to do it in a method that I have a core team working on the application itself, and we divide simply the work and we say, okay, I will work on introduction, you do the literature review, the third colleague will do the methodology part, and when the time comes, of course, we will all read it. I will go through and do the final reading and the final changes in regards to the document when the time comes. So from that perspective, you need to have a clear plan and to set a clear schedule for team members. Simply, people like a strong guidance. When you say, okay, next Tuesday we will meet, and by then your task is to do that, your task is to do that, my task is that. When we meet, we see what is the situation, and then define other steps until we finish the whole work, of course. Just to mention here, for example, for that European application we had, I was coordinating the activities of people from 3 countries, from 10 institutions, and in total it was 30 people working on the application, actually, working on the application. So this is very important to simply plan everything in details and to give us specific tasks to everybody in terms of the expectations towards those people in regards to the application. And finally, when it comes to the things that you should pay attention on before you start working on the application, please make sure for KFAS call, a mandatory thing. If you plan to submit a KFAS application in this round or in the future, you need to have a letter of intent signed by the president. This is a mandatory document that you need to upload in KFAS management system. When the time comes, I will show you next time how those things are conducted. But for now, you need to send to Dr. Khalil one paragraph, actually, let's say an abstract of your research, along with a suggested topic. And on the basis of your suggestion, Dr. Khalil will do the assessment and evaluation. And later on, of course, forward your request to the president, and you will receive, if everything is okay, if you are aligned with the call. And this is where, Ms. Rupali, again, your idea is checked against alignment. Of course, nobody can guarantee you that you will win the application later, but definitely it is checked against a general alignment, of course, with the call for the proposals. And my dear colleagues, that would be it for today. I'm not going to summarize these key takeaways from this introductory part, but I put them here simply for those who are interested in starting working on their first application and their first research idea, to have them here as a sort of guidance. As I said, the plan for the next session would be to discuss and start working on some more concrete things. This one was dedicated simply to some underlying information and factors which are mandatory in terms of preparing a project application. Dr. Faden, please.
Thank you, Dr. Vladimir, for this very interesting and supportive and helpful presentation. You might not want to summarize, but I want to summarize and highlight one important thing that you mentioned.
Of course.
The most important thing is what you said. You start from a seed grant, internal seed grant from AU. You start with a specific team, and then you build upon this. You have phases. You can increase teams. You can change teams, and you work on the same direction. You have 2 or 3, as you said, research topics, and you try to expand in different phases. This is very clever, and it ensures consistency. Plus, it will increase the volume of your research output. Now, since you emphasized a lot about KFAS projects, and I have 2 times experience, one is with you and one is before you come 3-4 years ago. If you allow me, can you please make me a presenter for only 2 minutes? I want to show something to our people because it might be very beneficial, to learn from previous experience. Because I'm afraid not always the feedback, especially from KFAS, is very constructive. In our case, remember they said it's out of scope, and I'm pretty sure it was within scope. So did you make me?
Sorry for cutting you. Unfortunately, I don't have the right to give you the presenting rights. Maybe Miss Maha can help here. I have the option to make you an attendee only, nothing else.
One moment, maybe I have this right. One moment. Can you see my screen?
Yes, excellent.
Okay, so I have this right.
Yes, we can.
So just very quickly to show you at that time, one of the research priorities was titled Health and Environment. And one, when they were explaining, it was saying prevention and control of pollution here, of pollution. Okay, my mouse is not working very well. Including waste, recycling, and management of hazardous material through development of strategies and technologies. So prevention and control of pollution, basically, health and environment. So I managed to get, 2 very reputable institutions in Greece. The topic was environmental pollution. You see the word here, pollution, as you mentioned, in Kuwait, and its effects on citizens' health, another keyword, as per what you said, that you have to include the keywords in the title. And then I got access from the Chemical Engineering Department, Radiation Chemistry and Biospectroscopy, National Technical University of Athens in Greece, also International Institute of Anti-Cancer Research. Those are very reputable and top institutions, research institutions in Greece. So I worked a lot on that proposal. Again, you will see environment, impact on health, and impact on economics. We are planning to do some measurements in terms of air pollution, water pollution, and then try to identify the impact of those environmental pollution on health issues, the economic impact in the society. And then we were planning, to propose solutions to address the environmental pollution problem in order to resolve some environmental issues in Kuwait. So the reply from KFAS was exactly the reply we received out of scope. I'm an experienced researcher. I have more than 30 European Union projects accepted in my career. And which means I have some experience about how to write grants and how to deliver the final projects. But at the end of the day, when you receive this kind of one sentence, it seems that, I don't know, maybe they didn't understand, they didn't pay a lot of attention. Then I was thinking, is it this? Because it's a reputable organization in Kuwait, one of the best research institutions in Kuwait. So always you are trying to find out why. Because you want to create the next time, you want to be more careful and more, successful.
Of course.
So I think it's a speculation, it's a hypothesis. Maybe, this kind of issues are a little bit sensitive, political sensitive. So when you are about to select a specific topic, you need to take that also in consideration. And I'm giving this advice to our friends here so we don't waste our effort, because I spent, I don't know, 3-4 months with collaborations, finding the measurements, budgeting. It was a big, effort. So what if, you come here with some external institutions, you tell, to the society that it's extremely polluted, and, you create an issue, like a crisis. So with this approach, then I said, okay, maybe it is justified. They didn't want to elaborate more. So they just found this, way to reject the project. The whole idea is not to demotivate people to, to submit. The opposite, be more careful when you select the topic, even if it might be suitable, with the research priorities. You need to think very thoroughly, because we are wasting our time and our effort, which is valuable. We don't have, it's limited. So you need to think from many different perspectives. I mean, what we are trying to prove, that this country has a huge pollution and you will come to save, the situation. So this is an extra, comment that I wanted to tell you from my experience.
Thank you, Dr. Faden. Definitely, it makes sense. But unfortunately, I'm sure that you are aware, even on the level of European Union, Dr. Faden, there is a lot of politics in terms who will be granted, who not, etc. These are things that unfortunately existing in the science, and I'm not sure that we can do something about it. But definitely,
also personal contacts. Dr. Omar is laughing. Who delivered the speech about WASTA. Maybe there is also personal contact that we have to push, in many different directions and ways to support.
There are many things, but from our side, we need to try to do our job in the best possible manner and best possible way. And of course, if we don't get accepted, as I said earlier, my approach, I'm always using it for something else. There cannot be a waste. If I invested some time in something, I'm going to use it until I find the proper output for it. So this is something I would really recommend and suggest to, especially to our younger colleagues who are maybe less experienced in these regards. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Faden. Is there anything else? My apologies, my dear colleagues. Simply, I was trying to tell you a lot of things. Maybe I should have planned more sessions for this KFAS grant, but we are learning from this experience, and next year, we will have more sessions. Definitely. Thank you all. If there are any more questions, please, you can ask them now, or you can contact me at any point regarding anything related to research. I will be more than happy. Next week we meet. As I said, we are starting to develop our project applications and to go through the process of preparing the application. Thanks again. All the best to all of you, and happy new semester. And we'll be in touch, of course, very soon.
Thank you.
All the best. My pleasure. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Vladimir.
My pleasure.
Thanks, Dr. Vladimir. That was really, really beneficial.